Hello and welcome back to part 2 of the Asphyxia playthrough. I hope you enjoy it. As I said in the first video, I'm going to try to keep these to about 10 minutes long. The link to the first video is down below in the description, and if you enjoy these, please subscribe. Enjoy!
Why can't you cut it yourself? There are people you can pay to do that, proper professionals. And if you really absolutely had to do it yourself, couldn't you have gone to a salon afterwards so they could trim it for you? Of course, Roberta would offer a sensible solution. Roberta always offered sensible solutions. I suppose that would make sense, yes. I didn't really think it through. You've always been impulsive, haven't you? I wasn't impulsive, not really. I was thinking about cutting it for a while. Yesterday just seemed like the right time. It seemed like the right time? Even though you knew you were going on our geography field trip today? That you were going to be sitting on a coach filled with your peers, all of whom will be judging you for hours? Well, you know I enjoy being at the center of attention, my dear Roberta. Miss Pope said it herself. Doesn't this seem characteristic as one as vain as I? Samantha tried to rebuff Roberta's query with a dry quip, but Roberta knew Samantha too well to be taken in. Rather than smiling as Samantha had hoped, she instead frowned, her eyebrows furrowing. I get the feeling there's something you're not telling me. Well, I don't need to tell you everything. You're not my mother. Alright, fine. I'll be quiet. You don't need to bite my head off, though. I was only offering you my opinion, which you did ask for, don't forget. Samantha let her head hang her fringe, the only part of her untouched by her merciless assault last night, obscuring her eyes. I know. I'm sorry, Bobby. I didn't mean to snap at you. I'm just tired. Roberta sniffed. Sometimes I think you don't appreciate just how much I have to put up with, Sam. I know. I'm sorry. Nobody else would be foolish enough to open their door to you at 4 in the morning, you know. Especially not when you're convinced you're dying of a brain tumor because your teeth hurt. I'm aware of that, Bobby, but you are exaggerating. That only happened once. It was the one time out of many. If it wasn't a pain in your teeth, it's a pain in your head, a pain in your ear, a pain in your side, a pain in your stomach. If you actually suffered from all those afflictions you claim to have, you'd be dead by now. Maybe I would be happier that way. No. No what? Don't even think about it. Don't even talk about it. The thought makes you that unhappy? The thought makes me angry. You mean you wouldn't miss me if I died? I never said I wouldn't miss you, but I would be annoyed at you. I didn't put this much effort into being your friend all these years for you to go and kill yourself. It would be incredibly rude of you. Samantha couldn't help but smile, even though Roberta's words were not exactly complimentary. I apologize. I'll try not to be selfish in the future. Good. I've invested too much into our friendship for you to throw it all away. I'm just trying to look out for you, Sam. You need somebody to take care of you, and I don't mind helping, but I wish you would appreciate me a little bit more. I do appreciate you, Bobby. Are you sure? I'm sure. I swear on it. Scout's honor. Roberta shook her head, bemused. You've never been in a Girl Scout. Well, most people swear on their mother's life, but I haven't seen her in so long, she may as well be dead, for all I care. How morbid. You shouldn't speak about your mother like that. Maybe I wouldn't, if she ever bothered to speak to me at all. Well, I suppose that will do, for the moment anyway. Samantha stretched, bringing her arms up above her head. The carrier bag she held in her right hand rustled, the cans inside clinking together. She had dozed intermittently on the coach, her eyes flickering open every time the vehicle went over a bump in the road, and she now felt even sleepier than she had done before. Samantha didn't like taking naps, even though she so often felt tired these days. They never made her feel better. As such, she had vowed to herself that she was going to rectify this problem, if not for her own sake, then Roberta's. She couldn't imagine that her friend was happy about being used as a pillow. When the bus stopped at a service station, Samantha's first port of call had been a small shop within the building, namely to the aisle that sold energy drinks. She had bought 4 or 5 cans of some random drink. She had never had that brand before, but the can was decorated in tiger paint, so it must have been effective, right? And was now making her way back to the coach. The sky above her head was overcast, festooned with grey clouds. Though the sky seemed to promise rain, the air was cool and crisp. It was a sharp contrast to the air inside the coach, which was stuffy and oppressive, having been filtered through almost 30 miles millions upon millions of times. The outside world felt and smelt far cleaner. It was refreshing. Samantha had no real desire to set foot back on the coach again. It felt supremely self-defeating, like bricking oneself up behind a wall. Unfortunately, she did not have much of a choice. With a resigned sigh, Samantha stepped back onto the coach. Instantly, she was greeted by rows of red chairs lined up neatly beside one another like unusually garish graves in a graveyard. Samantha was not fond of coaches. She found their movements lurching and unpredictable, and she hated being confined within them. Just how much further did they have to go anyway? Samantha thought to ask the driver, but he wasn't there. In fact, after scouring the coach, Samantha soon discovered she was one of the only people there. A couple of girls were sat in the middle of the coach, both asleep, and Samantha could spy a familiar splash of bright blue hair to her left. And speaking of bright blue hair, Samantha tensed. Just how many other people at St. Mary's had such an outlandish hair color anyway? Died, obviously. It could only be one person. Tabitha de Quincey, known to most of the girls at St. Mary's as de Quincey, was seated near the front of the coach, hunched over herself so her back making an arch. She was holding something in both her hands, and Samantha noted her shoulders were shaking. Upon further investigation, Samantha discovered, with no small amount of alarm, that de Quincey was crying. She could not see the girl's face, but she could hear her. Small, broken sobs emitted from her mouth, even though it seemed she was trying as hard as possible to rein them in. Samantha's grip on her carrier bag tightened. The plastic crackled. What should she do? She still had not forgotten what had occurred between herself and de Quincey a couple of months ago, and as close as the 2 girls had once been, Samantha had been trying her very best to avoid de Quincey since. Should she continue to uphold her resolution? She was the only person right now who knew de Quincey was crying, so did that make it her responsibility? What if something bad had happened to the other girl? The sudden death of a family member, a close friend, a beloved childhood pet. Samantha did uncomfortably unsure. Even though de Quincey was in tears, it had nothing to do with her. She did not owe de Quincey anything, even though she had, Samantha reflected with intrinsic guilt, borrowed all that money from her last term. Moreover, she may have been sobbing over something private, something she did not want others to know about. Asking her about it could very well make the matter worse. De Quincey was so lost in her mourning that she had not even noticed Samantha was there. Samantha could easily have slipped past her, back into her own seat, without ever knowing Samantha had seen her. It was perfect. So why weren't her feet moving? Would her conscience let her ignore a girl who had once been her friend? De Quincey? Samantha approached the girl slowly, with the same hesitancy one would use if they were dealing with a rabid dog. Just what was she expecting anyway? Did she think de Quincey was going to bite? The other girl might have been somewhat shameless, but not even she would have done something that outrageous. Not while she was sober, anyway. Drunk, on the other hand? No. Samantha did not want to think about that. She was not thinking about that. Ah! Excuse me. De Quincey lifted her head, blinking up at Samantha. Her eyes were red and puffy, swollen from tears, and she looked so very pitiful, Samantha found she could not remain anxious for too long. What did she have to be afraid of, really? De Quincey looked like a wreck. She looked even more miserable than Samantha had felt these last 3 months, which was quite an achievement. Sam, you're finally speaking to me after all this time? I suppose I am. I just couldn't ignore you. Not when you look so miserable. It would be quite unforgivable, I think. even though Samantha had, for a few moments, been pondering whether she should do exactly that. She didn't tell Quincey that, though. She didn't need to know. Sam, oh Sam, and I thought you would never speak to me again. You really are a sweetheart after all.